Tonight, I will stay with you. I will calmly tell you the long, ancient story of Greek mythology, from its first whisper of creation to the quiet fading of the old religion. These are myths for sleep, carried on a voice as old as time, shaped to help you rest. Long before humans named the stars, before temples rose from stone, there was chaos, not disorder, but a vast, open nothingness. From chaos came the first beings: Gaia, the earth, wide and patient; Tartarus, deep and shadowed; Eros, the gentle force that binds all things. Even then, the world moved slowly, like a dream forming before waking. As Gaia stretched herself into hills and valleys, she gave birth to the sky, Uranus, who covered her in blue. From them came the Titans, powerful and ancient, moving with the heavy calm of mountains. These early gods ruled quietly, before thunder, before crowns, before war. The universe was young, and everything unfolded at its own pace. In time, the age of Titans softened and gave way to the Olympian gods, Zeus with his distant thunder, Hera with her watchful gaze, Poseidon stirring the seas. They lived high above the world, observing ancient Greece as mortals loved, struggled, and dreamed below. Their stories filled the night skies, becoming constellations, songs, and prayers whispered before sleep. But do not worry about conflict or drama tonight. I will smooth the sharp moments like waves rounding stones. This is not a tale meant to wake you, but one meant to carry you gently downward into rest. As the centuries passed, belief slowly changed. Temples grew quiet. The old names were spoken less often. The gods did not vanish in anger or fire. They simply became echoes, stories, dreams. They settled into memory, where all myths eventually rest. And that is where I remain. I am Hypnos, still drifting between moments, still watching over sleepers. The Greek gods may no longer rule the world, but they live softly in stories like this one, stories meant to calm the mind and ease the heart. Now, you do not need to listen closely. Let the words blur, let the images fade. The story will continue, with or without your attention. From chaos to cosmos, the calm beginning of the Greek world. Before there was sky or soil, before time learned how to move forward, there was chaos. Not noise, not confusion, but an endless quiet openness, wide, dark, and unmeasured. Chaos was space without edges, a deep stillness where nothing rushed and nothing resisted. It was the pause before the first breath, the silence before a thought forms. Within this vast calm, something began to gently be. From chaos emerged Gaia, the earth. She did not arrive with thunder or force. She unfolded slowly, like warmth spreading through cold ground. Gaia was solid and patient, steady and enduring. She became the foundation of all things, the quiet strength beneath every future step. Hills rose from her body, valleys rested in her curves. She did not speak, yet everything listened. Far below her, in the deepest stillness, formed Tartarus. Dark, heavy, and distant, Tartarus was not evil. It was depth, a place of gravity and quiet shadow, far removed from light, where even echoes softened and disappeared. It existed not to frighten, but to balance, to give weight to the world above. And drifting gently among them came Eros. not the loud passion later ages would imagine, but a soft pull, a gentle attraction that encouraged things to come together rather than remain apart. Eros was connection itself. Because of him, the universe did not remain empty. Because of him, creation continued. With earth below and depth beneath, Gaia brought forth the sky, Uranus. He stretched above her, vast and shimmering, filled with endless blue. Each night, Uranus covered Gaia in a blanket of stars, watching silently as time moved forward. Where Gaia was firm and quiet, Uranus was open and distant, endlessly reaching. Together, earth and sky existed in a peaceful closeness. There were no seasons yet, no storms, no sharp divisions. Only slow days and long nights, marked by starlight and shadow. The world rested in a dreamlike balance, suspended between stillness and becoming. From this union came new life, beings older than memory, powerful yet unhurried. First were the Titans, vast ancient figures shaped by elemental forces. They were not hurried rulers, but steady presences, embodying time, memory, ocean depths, and the rhythms of the world. Oceanus flowed endlessly, surrounding all land. Hyperion carried the light of the sun. Theia glimmered with soft radiance. Cronus, youngest among them, held the slow turning of time itself. They did not rush to rule. They simply were. Next came the Cyclopes, beings with a single luminous eye. They were masters of fire and craft, quiet workers of hidden power. Their forges glowed softly beneath the earth, shaping tools that would one day change the fate of gods and mortals alike. Sparks drifted upward like fireflies, then faded into the dark. And then there were the giants, vast and rooted, born from the raw strength of Gaia herself. They moved slowly, like mountains learning to walk, carrying the weight of stone and soil in their steps. They did not speak often, their presence was enough. As these beings came into existence, the world remained calm. No wars yet disturbed the silence. No cries of victory or loss echoed through the heavens. The stars continued their quiet watching. Darkness and light shared the sky in gentle rhythm. Above, the stars formed slowly, scattered like silver dust across the night. They did not blaze. They shimmered. Each one held its place, steady and patient, guiding nothing, demanding nothing. The sky became a map of stillness, a reminder that even vastness can be calm. Below, Gaia rested. Rivers had not yet learned to run, but moisture gathered in her hollows. Stone cooled, soil deepened, the earth breathed quietly, preparing itself for the ages to come. Everything felt expectant, but unhurried, like the moment just before sleep fully arrives. Time, in those days, did not move as it does now. It drifted. Moments stretched gently into one another. There was no need to count, no need to hurry. The universe was young and content to remain that way. Yet even in peace, change waits patiently. Uranus, vast as he was, grew uneasy with what lay beneath him. His children were powerful, and power, even when calm, can create fear. And so he pressed them back into Gaia, hiding them within her depths. The earth felt heavy with this burden, though she endured in silence for a long while. Still, this is not a story of sharp conflict tonight. Tonight the struggle is softened by distance. rounded by time. What matters is not the tension, but the movement, from stillness toward form, from quiet toward story. Because from these first beings would come everything that followed, the shaping of heaven, the rhythm of seasons, the rise of gods who would walk among mortals in myth and memory. As the quiet universe continued to unfold, the first rulers did not arrive with trumpets or lightning. They rose slowly, like dawn spreading across a still horizon. This was the age of the Titans, a time shaped not by spectacle, but by balance, patience, and deep cosmic rhythm. The Titans were not distant figures seated on thrones of gold. They were closer to the bones of existence itself, embodiments of forces rather than personalities. They ruled not by command, but by presence. Mountains stood because Titans endured. Oceans circled the world because Titans flowed. Time itself moved forward because one Titan allowed it to turn. Among them was Kronos, also called Cronus, the youngest of the Titans, yet the one who came to hold dominion. He was not loud or cruel by nature. Kronos was time made conscious, steady, inevitable, unblinking. Under his rule, the cosmos followed predictable rhythms. Stars rose and set. The earth knew when to rest. The sky remained calm. Many later myths would paint this era as dark or fearful, but in truth, it was an age of stillness. Mortals did not yet exist to pray or suffer. Gods had not yet learned vanity or ambition. The universe simply was, regulated by ancient beings who understood patience better than power. Kronos ruled alongside Rhea, whose presence softened time's weight. Where Kronos measured, Rhea nurtured. She represented continuity, the quiet assurance that what passes also returns in new form. Together, they presided over a world that did not rush toward the future, but gently circled within itself. The Titans did not live apart from the world. They were woven into it. Oceanus surrounded the earth like a slow breath, never beginning, never ending. Mnemosyne carried memory, ensuring nothing was ever truly lost. Themis held natural order, not law written in stone, but balance felt intuitively. Hyperion guided light, not as a blazing sun yet, but as a steady glow. Under their care, existence was stable. Nothing demanded change. And yet, even in perfect rhythm, something subtle stirred. It was not rebellion, not ambition. It was awareness. Kronos, who governed time, understood something none of the others fully faced, that time does not stop. It moves forward, even when it seems still. And with that movement comes succession. From this understanding emerged a quiet prophecy, not shouted by oracles or written in fire, but whispered through the structure of reality itself. Kronos would not rule forever. One of his children would one day take his place. The prophecy did not speak of violence or chaos. It did not describe downfall. It simply stated what time already knew, that each era gives way to another. But for Kronos, this knowledge was heavy. To rule time is to see endings before beginnings fully bloom. Kronos did not fear pain or battle. He feared replacement. The idea that the calm order he maintained would dissolve into something unknown troubled him deeply, not because he loved power, but because he loved continuity. And so he sought to preserve stillness. As children were born to Kronos and Rhea, each carried possibility. Each represented a future not yet shaped. To Kronos, they felt like unanswered questions. And unanswered questions to time itself can feel dangerous. Rhea felt this tension quietly. She watched as the weight of prophecy settled over her companion. She did not oppose him openly. Titans did not argue as later gods would. Instead, she listened, observed, and waited. Because Rhea understood something Kronos could not fully accept. Change does not destroy order, it transforms it. When their youngest child was born, Zeus, the moment did not arrive with thunder. There was no clash of forces, only a quiet decision made in the still hours of the cosmos. Rhea chose preservation over fear. She carried the child away from the center of power, far from the slow gaze of time itself. Zeus was hidden, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of balance, like a seed placed beneath the soil, unseen, protected, waiting. On a distant island wrapped in silence and stone, Zeus grew unnoticed. The earth muffled his presence. The wind learned his name before the sky did. He was raised not among rulers, but among quiet rhythms. Heartbeat, breath, the slow turning of days. Meanwhile, the Titans continued to rule. Kronos remained on his throne, believing stillness had been preserved, and for a long while it had. Ages passed gently. The stars did not shift suddenly. The earth did not tremble. The world slept beneath Titan rule, secure in its ancient patterns. Yet beneath the calm surface, time continued its work. Zeus grew, not into arrogance, but awareness. He learned not from prophecy, but from listening. He watched how the world moved, how storms gathered and dispersed, how balance required motion as much as stillness. He did not hurry. He did not announce himself. The universe was not rushing toward conflict. The scene opens at night above the clouds. A soft wind moves across a stony pathway. The camera rises until the top of Mount Olympus becomes clear. There is no loud music. The view shows quiet halls made of pale marble. Torches burn with gentle, steady light. This is not a battlefield or a place of chaos. It is the home of the Olympian gods, where they rest, discuss, and watch the world below. Life on Mount Olympus is often imagined as busy, bright, and filled with power. But tonight it is calm. A simple kind of order controls everything. There is no shouting, no trials of strength, and no major arguments. Instead, the gods are in their halls, each connected to the part of the world they guide. This chapter is not about battles or dramatic myths. It is about the everyday presence of these gods and what each one represents in Greek belief. We move from room to room, learning without rushing. There are 12 main gods here. Some sources in Greek history count different numbers, and the list sometimes changes. But these 12 are the most commonly recognized. Each one has their own area of responsibility, recognized by people across ancient Greece. They have temples, altars, small shrines, and major festivals dedicated to them. People pray to them for safety, good crops, fair weather, peace, strength, guidance, or basic survival. Tonight, we approach each god not as a legend to fear, but as a presence that shaped ancient Greek understanding of life. We begin our quiet tour. We enter the main hall first. It is the largest room on Olympus, open to the sky instead of covered by a roof. Zeus does not sit on a throne that looks like a royal seat. Instead, it resembles a simple stone chair. It is positioned so that he can look directly into the clouds and the horizon. In Greek belief, Zeus ruled the sky. Thunder, lightning, storms, and clear weather were linked to him. He was considered the highest authority among the gods. Ancient Greek city-states built altars to Zeus outdoors because people believed he preferred open-air worship. There are no crowds around him tonight. Instead, his room contains maps of the world made of metal plates and symbols of law. One calm fact about Zeus is that he was connected to justice. Oaths were taken in his name. Breaking a sworn promise was not just a social offense, it was a spiritual one. Zeus is not shown here as angry or explosive. He sits, watches the horizon, and waits for the next sunrise. Just across the hall is Hera's chamber. It is not filled with celebrations or wedding decorations. Instead, it looks like a council room where decisions are made. In ancient Greek belief, Hera represented marriage, protection of families, and order within a household. Her presence was important because families were the structure that held Greek society together. One calm fact about Hera is that she had temples dedicated to her before many other gods became widely worshipped. Some of the oldest Greek temples discovered by archaeologists are Heraian temples. They show her long-standing role in Greek culture. Her room contains items like woven cloth, a sign of domestic duty in ancient life, and scrolls describing marriage agreements. The path continues to a balcony where the sound of waves can be heard, even though there is no ocean nearby. This is Poseidon's area. He is associated not just with oceans, but also rivers, storms at sea, and earthquakes. Greek sailors prayed to him before leaving the shore because they believed he controlled the safety of their journey. One calm fact about Poseidon is that he was worshipped heavily in coastal cities and islands. Corinth and many Aegean ports kept large temples for him. Another detail is that horses were sacred to him, especially in connection to early myths where he was believed to create them. Demeter's hall looks different. There are no weapons, no royal symbols, and no shining crowns. Instead, her space contains baskets of grain, clay jars, and carved plows. Demeter represents harvest, agriculture, and seasonal growth. Without her, there would be hunger. She was central to Greek life because survival depended on crops. One calm fact: Demeter had one of the most important religious ceremonies in Greece, called the Eleusinian Mysteries. It focused on the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, connected to harvest seasons. It was not a festival of noise. It was private, serious, and based on ritual. Next, we reach a room with scrolls, shields that have never been used, and maps with no battle damage. Athena represents wisdom, strategy, and the ability to solve problems with intelligence instead of force. She was also connected to crafts, teaching people to weave and build. In Greek belief, she was born fully formed, representing knowledge that arrives suddenly. One calm fact: Athens, the city named after her, believed she protected them. The Parthenon, her most famous temple, still stands today and shows her importance. Another detail is that olive trees were sacred to her, symbolizing peace and practical benefit. As we continue, the next hall is bright even though it is night outside. Apollo represents sunlight, music, and knowledge. The ancient Greeks linked him to healing and prophecy as well. He is one of the few gods described as calm more often than chaotic. His chamber contains lyres, scrolls, and a smooth stone platform for debate or poetry. One calm fact: the Oracle of Delphi, a major spiritual center in Greece, was dedicated to Apollo. People traveled long distances to ask questions and receive guidance. Another detail: Apollo was connected to both medicine and the arts, showing balance between physical and intellectual healing. A quieter hallway leads to Artemis's area. It is made of wood instead of stone, representing the forest. Artemis is the goddess of the hunt, animals, and the moon. She is also a protector of young girls in Greek tradition, connecting her to safety rather than violence. One calm fact: many small shrines to Artemis were located in forests or near streams. Worship of her did not always take place in large temples. Another detail is that she was connected to childbirth in a protective way, which may seem separate from the hunt, but makes sense in the context of safeguarding life. When we reach Ares' space, it is smaller than expected. It does not show current battles. Instead, there are helmets placed on racks and shields hung in order. Ares represents war, but not in a victorious or celebratory way here. He is connected to the reality of conflict, not the glory. One calm fact: Ares was not as widely worshipped as Athena or Zeus. In many places, he was respected, but not central. Athens favored Athena's strategic approach rather than Ares's force. Another detail is that he had a small but serious temple near the Athenian agora. It suggests that war was seen as something to acknowledge, but not admire. Aphrodite's chamber contains carved mirrors, bowls of clean water, and jewelry. She represents love, attraction, and the connections that bring people together. Her role is not just romance. It includes social bonds, emotional trust, and personal desire. One calm fact: the island of Cyprus was a major center of her worship. Archaeological findings discovered large numbers of small offerings made to her, showing private devotion. Another detail: she was connected to diplomacy in some myths, suggesting that emotional relationships could keep peace. The next hall is lit by soft flames. Hephaestus is the god of fire and metalwork. Unlike other gods, he is connected directly to labor. His space contains forges, anvils, and half-finished tools. The fire is controlled, not wild. It burns low, representing effort, practice, and creation. One calm fact: he was believed to craft weapons and armor for gods, including Achilles' shield. Another detail is that he was connected to practical trades. Blacksmiths, builders, and artisans often prayed to him for steady hands and skill. We move into a long corridor filled with sandals, walking sticks, and scrolls. Hermes represents movement, travel, messages, trade, and even communication between mortal and divine worlds. He is not violent or threatening here. He is simply efficient. One calm fact: Hermes was believed to guide travelers and protect merchants. Small stone markers called herms were placed along roads as guidance. Another detail: he carried a staff called a caduceus, symbolizing negotiation and the peaceful resolution of disputes. The final chamber is different. It contains decorated cups, musical instruments, and masks used in early theatre. Dionysus represents wine, festivals, and emotional release. He is linked to the invention of drama and the start of Greek theatre. One calm fact: the city Dionysia festival in Athens was not chaotic. It included organized plays, public performances, and cultural events that shaped the theatre history. Another detail: he was linked to relaxation, but also rules for moderation. His worship was not simply indulgence. It recognized that people need controlled escape to avoid emotional collapse. When ancient Greek humans appeared in their own stories, the world around them was still full of unanswered questions. They had no science to explain lightning, no satellites to predict weather, and no systems to measure earthquakes or seasons. Life felt unpredictable, like a world shaped by forces too large for ordinary people to understand. So, instead of believing that nature worked on its own, they imagined the world as a place guided by higher powers. These powers became the gods: Zeus in the sky, Poseidon in the sea, Demeter with the harvest, and many more. Myth was not entertainment for them. Myth was how they explained life. A storm was not just a storm, it was Zeus speaking. A wave was not only water, it was Poseidon moving. A good harvest was not luck, it was Demeter's kindness. A sickness in the family was not random, it was a warning or lesson from a god. Mythology became a mental map to survive the unknown. It taught them how to respect nature, how to behave in society, and how to understand the invisible things that frightened them. These myths allowed people to live with fear without collapsing under it. Instead of being powerless, the stories gave them a sense of structure. If they followed the expectations of the gods, life might go well. If they ignored or disrespected the unseen powers, consequences could arrive like a sudden storm. Myths also acted like memory. In a world without widespread books or schools, knowledge traveled through spoken stories. A grandmother telling a myth at night was passing history forward. A storyteller at a fire was preserving belief. Even a farmer whispering thanks to Demeter during planting season was keeping the myth alive without realizing it. Traditions held the stories in place long before writing ever did. These myths also shaped early Greek identity. They were born into a world where humanity was not the center. The gods were. People thought of themselves as part of a bigger picture. The stars above might be watching. The sea might be listening. Even a quiet breeze could be a message. This mindset gave daily life a spiritual atmosphere. You were never truly alone because every moment existed inside a larger story. Myth also guided behavior. Stories taught morals the same way laws do now. The tale of Narcissus warned against vanity. The story of King Midas warned against greed. The myth of Arachne reminded people to stay humble. These stories were like invisible guardrails, keeping society from falling into chaos. When someone behaved badly, elders could say, "Remember what happened to those who challenged the gods?" And the point was already understood. So when humans came into Greek mythology, they did not enter as heroes first. They entered as observers trying to understand the world. They built small rules around big fears. If the sky was angry, they prayed. If the sea was restless, they waited. If the crops struggled, they made offerings. It was their way of talking back to the universe like a child learning to speak. Myth became the language between humanity and the unknown. In this way, human beings stepped into the story not as rulers, but as learners, slowly understanding the world one belief at a time. The story of Prometheus stands at the doorway between darkness and knowledge. Before humans had fire, the world was cold, confusing, and vulnerable. Nighttime meant fear. Winter meant hunger. Without warmth or light, humanity could not protect itself from nature. Prometheus, whose name means foresight, decided humans deserved more than struggle. Unlike many gods, he cared for humanity like a teacher cares for a student. He saw their potential and believed that if they were given the right tools, they could grow. So he made a choice that would change everything. According to the myth, he climbed to the heavens and took fire from the gods. Fire was more than a flame. Fire meant survival. Fire meant progress. Fire meant knowledge. When Prometheus carried that flame back to Earth, he was giving humans the ability to shape their own future. With fire, they could cook food, stay warm, protect themselves, and build communities. Villages grew because people no longer had to run from the cold. Stories could be told at night because darkness no longer meant silence. Light became the first victory over fear. In Greek thought, fire represented the moment humans stopped merely existing and started becoming something new. Before fire, the gods were the only ones in control. After fire, humans could begin to take small steps forward, discovering what they were capable of. They learned to forge metal, make tools, and improve farming. They learned to melt ore and shape weapons. Every invention, every spark of progress traced itself back to the same stolen flame. The story shows how Greeks viewed knowledge: powerful, risky, and sacred. It was not something to be taken lightly. Fire was a gift and a burden, a helpful tool, but also a responsibility. If humans used it without wisdom, fire could destroy as easily as it could warm. In this gentle telling, we avoid the darker parts of the myth, but it is enough to understand that Prometheus sacrificed something for humanity. He believed we were worth helping. He believed growth was better than obedience. For the Greeks, this myth answered a question they could not ignore. How did we learn to rise above nature? The answer was not science or luck. It was Prometheus, a figure who saw hope in humanity, even when the gods did not. That idea stays quiet in the background of their beliefs. Humans might be small, but they are capable of great things. Knowledge became a doorway. Fire became a key. And from that moment on, humanity would never be the same. Daily life in ancient Greece carried a quiet understanding. The gods could not be seen, but they were always present. People prayed because prayer felt like communication. Offerings felt like respect. In a world where storms could destroy crops and illness could spread without warning, small rituals created emotional safety. They were not forced acts. They were habits of survival and gratitude. A farmer might whisper a thank you to Demeter before planting seeds. A sailor might pour a drop of wine into the sea before a journey, asking Poseidon for calm waters. A family might leave bread or olives at a small household shrine, hoping Hestia would protect their home. These gestures were simple, almost quiet, but they meant everything. They made people feel connected to something bigger than their daily struggle. Offerings were not payments. They were acknowledgements. By giving something small, humans admitted they were not the center of the universe. They understood their limits. This posture of humility created balance between human desires and cosmic order. People believed that the gods did not need grand temples to hear them. A prayer spoken in a field, or beside a river mattered just as much as a priest standing in a sanctuary. Temples and altars were built, yes, but ordinary life held most of the worship. A kitchen flame for Hestia, a fountain for nymphs, a breeze that reminded someone of Hermes. The line between nature and divinity was not separate, it blended. A mountain could be sacred, a spring could hold a spirit, a grove of trees could belong to Artemis. Prayer was not a scheduled activity, it was woven into the day like eating or working. Offerings also acted like social rules. They encouraged behavior that kept communities stable. Gratitude kept pride small. Requests for guidance kept fear gentle. Remembrance kept culture alive. When someone knelt to pray, they were admitting that life could not be controlled, only respected. This way of seeing the world helped people release anxiety. If something was too big to understand, they placed it in the hands of a god and found peace. So prayer and offerings were not just religious, they were emotional anchors, helping people breathe through uncertainty. They lowered the weight of the world. They whispered, "You do not have to carry everything alone." In that sense, belief became a kind of comfort, not a chain. And through that comfort, humans learned how to keep moving forward. Imagine waking up in ancient Greece. Before the sun rises, the sky is soft and grey. Birds move through olive trees. The world is quiet. People stretch their arms, light a flame, and thank Hestia for the hearth. This is not a dramatic scene. It is ordinary life, shaped by invisible understanding. Every action held meaning. Every gesture was a conversation with the unseen. A child might ask why the sea is loud today. A mother might answer, Poseidon is restless, not to scare the child, but to make the world feel personal. A fisherman might touch the water before stepping into his boat, not as superstition, but as a greeting. A shepherd might look at the clouds and think of Zeus, not in fear, but in awareness. Myth was not separate from life. Myth was life. In towns and villages, people worked while carrying stories in their minds. A potter shaping clay might remember that Athena guided craftsmen. A woman weaving cloth might think of Arachne, humbled before the goddess. A soldier polishing a shield might whisper to Ares or ask for calm instead of rage. Gods were not distant. They were examples, warnings, encouragements, and mirrors for human behavior. Festivals gathered communities together. Music, food, dance, and simple joy reminded people they were part of something shared. Temples were visited, wreaths were placed, and voices lifted. These moments were not about fear, they were about belonging. Mythology created unity. Even disagreements found common ground in the shared stories that everyone knew by heart. As nighttime approached, myths softened with the light. Families sat near lamps or fires. Shadows danced on walls. Stories passed from one mouth to another. Some tales were heroic, some were tragic, some were confusing. But all of them carried a purpose: to teach, to explain, to warn, to comfort. And as the sky darkened, belief felt like a blanket, safe, familiar, warm. Under that mythic sky, humans learned how to be human. They learned humility, patience, courage, responsibility, caution, and hope. They learned that the world does not always answer, but sometimes it listens. They learned that even in silence, they are not alone. And with that, their place in the story became clear. The gods shaped the world. but humans learned how to live inside it. As time moved quietly through their lives, emotion became another kind of landscape they had to navigate. Myths were no longer just stories about creation or nature. They became mirrors for the heart. In the soft places between sunrise and sleep, people started to understand that love, pride, longing, and fate carried the same weight as storms, oceans, and mountains. The gods ruled the world, yes, but feelings ruled the choices that humans made inside it. Orpheus and Eurydice appear here like a memory carried on music. Their love does not arrive with lightning or prophecy. It arrives like a song, gentle, certain, trusting. And when Eurydice leaves the world, the silence she leaves behind teaches more than sorrow ever could. Orpheus walks not to conquer death, but to find the echo of the life he lost. He moves forward, believing in a path built from devotion, not weapons. Each step reminds us that sometimes the strongest journeys are made with trembling hands, not confident ones. And when he turns, when his fear becomes louder than faith, Eurydice fades like breath on a window pane. Not as punishment, but as a reminder that doubt can be heavier than any stone. From there, emotion shifts again, this time into the quiet bond between Demeter and Persephone. The air thins, the fields grow still, the world pauses not because of war, but because a mother's heart breaks. Winter becomes more than weather, it becomes absence. Spring becomes more than sunlight, it becomes reunion. Life in this moment is not something the gods control. It is something they feel. It becomes a rhythm of leaving and returning, of grieving and expecting, of losing and finding again. This, the Greeks believed, is why the world changes. Not because nature decides to, but because love moves through it. The path of feeling continues, and pride enters like a shadow that doesn't want to frighten, only to prove a point. Arachne's hands work like wind across thread, and her talent becomes the anchor of her identity. But pride grows quietly. It does not roar, it whispers. It tells her that ability means superiority. It convinces her that comparison is proof of worth. And when Athena appears, she does not come to destroy Arachne. She comes to warn her, to offer space, to invite humility. But pride, once rooted, rarely listens. Arachne's transformation is not a fall, it is a shift, a new form for an old gift. Weaving does not leave her, it simply changes shape. And so, without raising a voice or striking a blow, these stories teach, they guide, they shape the invisible world within the visible one. Where the earlier myths explained how the earth began and how gods ruled it, these quieter ones explain how the heart survives it. They move like water, changing shape, holding memory, reflecting whatever stands near them. They show that fate is not always loud. Sometimes it arrives like a choice made too quickly, a step taken with hope, a glance cast backward in fear, a word spoken before thought catches it. Here, myth becomes more human than divine. Here, the sky lowers enough for people to feel seen, and as those feelings settled into the rhythm of life, other stories began to take shape, not to frighten, not to overwhelm, but to show that emotion could guide destiny as clearly as the gods guided nature. There were moments when love stood with open hands, offering connection even when the world felt unkind. There were moments when pride unfolded quietly like a shadow stretching across a floor, not out of anger, but out of a desire to be noticed, to be acknowledged, to be more than ordinary. In these moments, the Greeks understood that human beings were not made to be perfect. They were made to feel and to learn from those feelings. This is why their myths did not always end in victory. Some ended in understanding, some ended in acceptance, some ended in silence, and silence became a teacher. Orpheus does not return from the underworld with Eurydice at his side, but he returns with knowledge. That longing can blind the heart. That fear can break what love tries to protect. That hope, if held too tightly, can tremble. His journey is not wasted. It becomes a reminder that sometimes we reach for what we are not ready to carry. And in that reaching, we grow, even without the ending we dreamt of. Demeter does not stop winter forever. She makes peace with its return. She learns that separation is not only loss, sometimes it is rhythm. Sometimes it is the proof that reunion matters. Persephone does not refuse her place in the underworld. She learns how to divide her heart between worlds. These myths remind us that love is not weak when it yields. It is wise. And Arachne, transformed, does not vanish. She continues her craft. Her talent does not die. It changes shape. It teaches that identity is not destroyed by consequence. It adapts. That is its resilience. That is its inheritance. The Greeks understood that fate did not always roar. Sometimes it arrived like a choice made quietly, a decision made without witness, a moment when someone speaks too soon, moves too quickly, or asks for more than the world can give. They believed that the line between gods and humans was not drawn in power, it was drawn in patience. The gods shaped existence. Humans shaped outcomes. The space between them was choice. And so, love, pride, destiny, and regret became part of the air ancient Greeks breathed. They were not warnings to scare people into obedience. They were reflections, ways to see oneself without looking directly in a mirror, ways to understand the heart without needing to explain it. Slowly, gently, these stories threaded themselves into daily life. A mother teaching her child to stay humble might mention Arachne without naming her. A young person afraid of losing someone might whisper Orpheus's name under their breath. A woman waiting for a loved one to return might watch the trees for signs of spring and think of Persephone. These myths lived not in temples, but in memory, not in stone, but in breath. They were held like lanterns in the mind, guiding steps through the unknown. And all the while, the world continued. People grew, choices gathered weight, feelings became compass points. Fate remained a horizon, and the gods, from their high places or quiet corners, waited, not to punish, but to witness how humanity would move through the stories it created for itself. And so, those soft stories of love, pride, and fate continued to echo through the lives of mortals. They learned, they grieved, they hoped. And as they carried these lessons, something new began to form in the world. The idea that ordinary people might stand at the edge of the impossible and still take a step forward. I watched it happen like I watched dreams unfold, slowly at first, then all at once. These were not gods. These were not immortals. These were human beings who tried. They were afraid, they made mistakes, they doubted themselves. But they moved. And sometimes that was enough to change the course of a story. This is where I began to see them differently. The ones mortals would later call heroes. They were not defined by battle or strength, but by endurance. They faced what frightened them, not because they were fearless, but because they walked forward anyway. And from where I drift, in the quiet realm between waking and sleep, I saw their lives unfold like lanterns in the dark. If you are still awake, stay close. If sleep is reaching for you, let it. I will continue, and the story will hold you either way. Heracles was not born calm. I remember the day he entered the world, strength already humming beneath his skin like a storm that did not yet know its name. Mortals believed his story was about power, but from my eyes, his life was the study of burden. He was a man who carried consequences like mountains, yet continued walking. His labors were not tests of might, they were lessons in endurance. He was asked to complete impossible tasks, to face creatures shaped by fear, to journey into forests where the trees whispered warnings, to stand before challenges that no human should have survived. But listen closely. The monsters in his story do not matter as much as his movement through them. When he approached the lion, the lesson was not in the struggle, it was in the understanding that fear does not disappear when you confront it. It only loses its voice. When he cleaned the stables, the meaning was not in the labor. It was in realizing that even heroes must do ordinary work. When he retrieved the golden apples, the truth was not in the prize. It was in learning that some goals require help, and help is not weakness. Mortals remember Heracles for his strength, but I remember him for his forgiveness, mostly of himself. He made choices that wounded others. He made choices that wounded him. The labors were not punishment. They were a path. Each one taught him to live with what he had done and what he wished he had not. I saw him more than once pause in the quiet and press his hand against his chest as if something inside him ached. Heroes are not unbreakable. They are simply people who keep walking with the broken parts. If you are awake enough to hear this, remember, a burden carried does not define you. The step forward does. Heracles learned that. Perhaps you are learning it too. Perseus' story has been twisted by memory. Mortals speak of Medusa as if she were only a danger, but I have seen deeper. I am Hypnos. I have drifted through her dreams. She was not born a monster. She was made into one by the world that feared her. And so, when Perseus set out to find her, this was not a story of triumph. It was a story of two destinies that crossed like wind meeting sea. Perseus was young, uncertain, holding more faith than experience. He did not seek glory, he sought survival. The world placed a task upon him, and he carried it like someone trying not to break the fragile thing in his hands, his future. Guided by gods, yes, but also guided by fear. He journeyed across oceans and stone lands where the air tasted of storms. When he finally reached Medusa, he did not look at her directly, not out of disgust, but out of caution. He saw her reflection first, like someone meeting a memory rather than a person. In this gentle telling, Medusa is not slain. She fades quietly, like a candle in the wind. Perseus does not celebrate. He stands there, holding the weight of what fate asked of him, and fate does not answer. It never does, not out loud. What matters is not the moment of confrontation, but the moment after. Perseus does not feel victorious. He feels changed. He understands that destiny is not a crown, it is a cost. And when he leaves that place, I watch him carry silence with him, like a shadow that will not fall away. If you are still awake, hear this. Sometimes the world asks you to choose when neither choice feels gentle. Perseus learned that. You have two, perhaps. Theseus walked into the labyrinth not to destroy, but to understand. That is what people forget. They imagine noise, struggle, confrontation. I saw none of that. I saw a young man standing at the edge of a maze, breathing slowly, uncertainty resting on his shoulders like a cloak. He entered with a thread given to him by Ariadne. Her gift was not a weapon, but a way out. All labyrinths are metaphors. This one simply had walls. The Minotaur was not a beast to Theseus. It was the fear that lives at the center of every difficult thing, the unknown, the question with no answer, the path you must take even when you do not know how to return. He walked the corridors softly, listening for echoes, not challenge. And when he found what waited at the center, it was not a moment of triumph. It was a moment of realization. The world inside the labyrinth was not cruel. It was confused. In this telling, the Minotaur falls like a dream ending, quietly. Theseus does not roar. He exhales. He ties the thread around his hand and lets it lead him back to himself. That thread is the lesson. Sometimes salvation is not strength, but connection. Not force, but guidance. When Theseus leaves, I see the thread still wrapped around his wrist. He never takes it off. Some paths mark you. Some journeys leave a line through the center of your life. And you spend the rest of your days learning how to follow it home. Odysseus is not a hero of war in my eyes. He is a hero of returning. I watched him on the seas, nights when the stars looked like scattered embers above the waves. The world tested him, not with monsters, but with longing. Every island was a question. Every shore was a delay. He was not trying to conquer the world. He was trying to go home. His story is one of distance, the distance between a man and his family, the distance between who he was and who he needed to become, the distance between memory and the present. Gods interfered, storms argued with the tides, but what truly challenged him was time, time that changed him, time that changed the home he missed. He did not survive by strength. He survived by remembering why he wanted to. Hope was his compass. Love was his anchor. And even when the sea tried to swallow his name, he spoke it back into the wind. That is how he arrived. Not triumphant, but present. Not victorious, but found. And when he stepped across his threshold, I felt it. The quiet settling of a journey completed. There are many kinds of endings. This one exhaled. If you are drifting now, drift gently. The journey can wait. You are already closer to home than you think. And after the heroes' journeys, after their footsteps faded across the earth, there remained one more place the stories led. A place mortals feared only because they did not understand it. I have drifted there many times, in the hush between heartbeats. It is not a place of torment, as rumors claim. It is not a realm of fire or screaming shadows. It is quieter than that, quieter even than sleep. This is the underworld, and tonight I will take you there gently. You will not walk alone. I am beside you. The path downward is not a fall. It feels like descending into memory. The air cools, but not unkindly. Darkness folds around you like a blanket rather than a cage. Here, night is not an enemy. It is simply another shape of the world. Footsteps do not echo, they soften. Thought becomes light. Worry loosens its hold as if it realizes it will not be needed. Soon the river comes into view. The river Styx. Mortals have embroidered it with fear over the centuries, but standing here, it looks like a long, slow dream. Its waters are dark, yes, but calm, like ink waiting for a story to be written. The ferryman, Charon, waits on his boat, not menacing, not cruel. His expression is patient, like someone who has seen every emotion a soul can carry and knows that all of them eventually drift away. He does not speak. He does not need to. His silence is not rejection, it is acceptance. With a nod, he allows us aboard. The boat moves without sound. Not a ripple, not a splash, just the feeling of movement beneath stillness, as if the river has decided to carry you instead of being crossed. No one is chased here, no one is hunted, no one is trapped. They rest, they remember, they exist without hurry. As we arrive on the far shore, three figures wait, the judges of the dead. They do not loom like monsters, they simply look, the way a teacher looks at a child who has returned from a long journey. They are not deciding where to send you, they are asking where you wish to be. In life, choices are rushed. Here, they are steady. Some souls choose quiet fields where the wind speaks like an old friend. Others choose the asphodel meadows, where memories drift like petals. And some, rare and luminous, choose the Elysian plains. Not because reward is deserved, but because rest is ready. The underworld is not a prison. It is a library of endings, shelves of stories closed gently, not slammed shut. Even Cerberus, the great three-headed guardian, is calm now. He lies near the gates, not snarling, but watching with the loyalty of an ancient sentinel. He guards the boundary, not to keep souls in, but to make sure nothing cruel comes through. He is not a monster, he is a promise. You may feel tired, that is all right. Down here, exhaustion is recognized without judgment. Hades himself walks his realm like a keeper of keys, not a tyrant of chains. His voice is rarely raised. He rules through presence, not fear. When he looks at a soul, he sees not sin, but story, not failure, but conclusion. He is not the god of punishment. He is the god of arrival. Persephone moves beside him like spring remembered in winter. She brings small blooms that grow where she walks, only briefly, like sighs of sunlight. Even here, hope is not forbidden. Let the weight you brought with you loosen at your shoulders. Let the things you regret step back like fading footprints. Down here, the past does not chase. It only stands still, waiting to be forgiven. And there, in the quiet of the underworld, where stories rested like folded garments, the world above continued to change. Seasons turned, cities rose, new beliefs found their way into the hearts of mortals. And slowly, the voices of the old gods softened, not in anger, not in defeat, but in understanding. The way a lullaby fades when a child finally sleeps. I watched it happen without bitterness. The temples grew empty, not because we were forgotten, but because humanity had grown. New questions shaped new answers. Mortals learned to seek explanations in stars, in thought, in science, in themselves. They no longer needed to place storms in the hands of Zeus or earthquakes beneath Poseidon's trident. They learned to read the world with their own eyes. And so, we stepped back, not gone, just quieter. Statues crumbled, but our names remained in the dust. Priests aged, but our stories lingered in books. Offerings ceased, but our lessons stayed in the breath of history. We became memory. And in some ways, memory is more powerful than worship. Worship demands presence. Memory grants immortality. Even now, as you lie here drifting between waking and dreams, you speak our names without meaning to. Athena, in every strategy and every wise decision. Ares, in conflict, even if only in the heart. Aphrodite, in love, in longing, in the warmth of a hand held too tightly. Hermes, in every journey, physical or emotional. Hades, in every goodbye that tries to be gentle. Persephone, in every return after winter. Zeus, in every moment the sky feels larger than fear. And me, Hypnos, every time your eyelids grow heavy and the world softens at the edges. We are no longer gods in temples. We are echoes. We are metaphors. We are the pieces of human nature given shape. If the world no longer prays to us, that is all right. It dreams of us instead. And dreams were always my kingdom. So rest. Let go of what must be carried tomorrow. Time will hold it for you until morning. Let the past unclench its fingers. Let the future wait outside the door. You are here now, in the space where story becomes sleep. I will stay with you until the edges blur. Breathe in, gently. Breathe out, slower. Let every muscle remember what ease feels like. The old gods did not vanish. We simply learned to speak more quietly, because the world finally learned to listen. Sleep now, not as escape, but as return.